A question that many new speakers have is, what should I talk about? Now, often they'll ask a question like, well, what's popular in the market? What are people paying for? On the surface, this sounds like a great question, but in reality, it's a terrible question. Why? Because the only subjects you should be talking about are those that you know well and care about. For example, let's say you're in the medical field and an opportunity came up to speak about financial planning that would pay you $10,000. Are you going to go talk about it just because somebody's going to pay? Probably not a good strategy, especially if you have no background in the financial world. So don't ask the question, what are people paying for? Instead, ask yourself some different questions. Which questions are those? Well, I'm glad you asked. One of my favorite speakers is also one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. His name is Randy Harvey. Randy is a former high school administrator. He is a very successful attorney, and he also happens to be the 2004 world champion of public speaking. Now, subsequent to that, he has also become a very successful professional speaker. Whenever Randy works with new speakers, there are 3 questions that he asks. 3 questions that get to the core of what people should be speaking about. I suggest you ask these same questions of yourself. Now, here's the key. You need to understand this before you jump into this little exercise. You will never be able to completely answer these questions. So why do I recommend them? Because they get to the heart of who you are, what you're about, and what you want to talk about or what you care about. So here are the 3 questions. You're also not going to answer these in 10 minutes. But I promise, if you repeatedly come back to these questions, you will get a deeper insight into who you are, and you'll pick up new material all the time because old stories will come back to you, and you'll have something relevant to talk about to any new audience. So here are the questions. First is, who are you? Nothing like a good metaphysical question to start this off, right? But when we ask, who are you? What roles do you play? What have you done in the past? What do you dream of doing in the future? This is like, think about a funnel. At the top of a funnel is a big open area, and as you go down the funnel, it gets narrower and narrower. This first question is like the top of the funnel. It's a general question, but it starts us down the path of what you're going to eventually speak about. So write down your roles. Write down which ones you liked, which ones you didn't like. Now, once you've got those questions answered, the second question is, what are you about? What are your core values? What's important to you? What's not important to you? Those questions get a little bit more narrow in trying to drill down to the stories that you will tell in your speeches and presentations, the stories that will bring your presentations to life and make them more memorable. But first we have to find out what's critical to you, what has been some of your driving forces, your morals, your values, etc. So that's your second question. The third, and this is where you're going to uncover your stories. Who taught you your values, morals, and important lessons? Was it a person? Maybe a family member, grandparent, parent, cousin, uncle, aunt? Was it a professor at school? Maybe a favorite teacher? Maybe it was something you read in a book or watched on a TV program. Somewhere you learned lessons. What we want to do is find out who taught you those lessons. Most likely, those lessons are key turning points in your life, where you start to think, feel, or act differently. Now, you may have heard that term before in a speaking sense, because that is ultimately the goal of any speech, is to change the way people think, feel, or act. In your life, you've had turning points. What we want to do is pinpoint those people, those objects, those movies, books, whatever it was, that helped you turn around, or not necessarily turn around, but head into a new direction because you thought differently. So that's your assignment. Again, you're not going to get these answers in 10 minutes. You're also not going to have a full, insightful view of yourself after doing this one time. This is an exercise. If you did this every few months for the rest of your life and kept a journal of it, you would see very different answers 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now than what you do today. So to answer the question, what should you talk about? Answer these 3 questions, and it will help you start to pinpoint on exactly what subject you should focus on for your next audience. Until our next video, always remember, you have a story that someone needs to hear. We're going to uncover that story a little bit deeper after this video, but when you tell that story well, you will impact more lives than you can ever imagine.